Hey everybody, it is the White Belt Sensei Matt Lear, and I wanted to let you know what this podcast is all about. So each month we do a series called Do This Now, and that is geared towards individuals who are looking to get that first buck on the wall or to get some consistency. This Do This Now is a little different though. We reached out to Rob Yahrmarkt. He is a pro shooter with Matthews, and the focus this month was going to be on developing a shooting routine that will get you prepared for when the fall comes. And we cover a couple other things down here as well too. But when I talked to Rob, I said, "Hey Rob, it's going to be a 15-minute conversation. I just need you to give me like 2 to 3 tips and then you'll be on your merry way." And we ended up talking for an hour. So we got into some really cool stuff here. We got into, mindset, what it takes to really accomplish your goals and even to live the life that you dreamed of. We also cover what you should be doing right now, this very second with your bow, how often you should be shooting, some common mistakes to avoid, and even the fixed versus mechanical broadhead debate towards the end. So I think this podcast has something to offer for anybody at any level. And so I encourage you to listen in, but we're going to get started with the Do It Now series. Welcome to the Mobile Hunters Dojo. Take a seat on the mat and get ready to learn from today's best mobile hunting masters. I'm your host, the White Belt Sensei, Matt Lear. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at the Mobile Hunters Dojo. Welcome to the dojo. Come on in, kick off your shoes, and take a seat on the mat. This is the White Belt Sensei, Matt Lear, and this is the Do It Now series for May. So if this is your first time tuning in, the Do This Now series is geared towards individuals who are looking to get their first buck or to get a little bit more consistency of success in the woods. And so a quick recap of what we've been doing. In February, we set SMART goals. In March, we went out and we did some boots on the ground scouting. In April, we prepped our gear. And if you haven't had a chance to go out and do any of that yet, no worries. You still have time. You're just going to have to work a little bit harder. But go back and listen to those previous Do This Now series and get started and get caught up. And then come back and listen to this one. So here we are. We're in May. And we're going to focus on a couple things today. But we're really going to focus on one particular area. But first, I want to talk about trail cameras. So we're not going to go into trail cam strategy today. That's going to be next month. So in June, you're going to come back here and we're going to lay out a plan on how to use our trail cameras. And when I talk about trail cameras, there's a lot of conversation out there about more trail cams you have, the better. I run 30 of them. At least I have in the past. This year, I don't think I'm going to run as many. Honestly, I think I'm going to run about 5 trail cameras this year. And so that's not what we're talking about, the large amount of trail cams being deployed. We're talking about a trail cam strategy for guys who have 1 to 5 cameras. Now, if you have more cameras, you want to tune in next week or next month, there's going to be some really good strategy that we talk about, and you can apply it to obviously more than 5 trail cameras. But if you have 1 to 5 trail cameras, we're going to lay down a plan for you that is going to be effective and help you get the most out of those trail cameras. So if you're listening to this and say, "Hey Matt, I don't have any trail cameras," go out and get one. And you can get them inexpensive. You don't have to spend, big bucks on them. I mean, I got a Tasco. Actually, I've got about 10 or 12 Tascos here that, they're $30 each. And you get those. So that's step number 1 for this month. Either get out your trail cameras or go buy them. And so at least have 1. If you can get 5, that's even better. But you can still be effective with 1. So at least have 1 for next month. Now, what I want you to do with that trail camera once you get it is I want you to get a card for it. I want you to format that card if it requires that. And then we also want to go and get lithium batteries. Now, you can run these without lithium batteries, but, I really like the lithiums because they don't explode, they don't freeze. They last forever. You're not going to run out with your lithiums unless you're on some like amazing, maybe like a mineral site or something like that. You can't do that in Michigan, but in other states you can. But even then, I don't think you're going to run out unless it's a cell cam. I have a cell cam here in Michigan that probably gets about anywhere between 2 to 6 photos a day. And there's some days in between that I don't get any photos out of it. I've run lithium in them or in that one. And I've had it out there for 2 years, 2 solid years. I have not gone out there. I've not replaced it. I've not looked at it. It's right outside of bedding. It's in a real sensitive spot and it's still working and it's still telling me it's fully charged. So lithium batteries are way pricier, but for this experiment, what we're doing, I want you, to really consider getting the lithium batteries because they're going to be headache free and they're going to last a long time. And then what we need to do this month with those trail cameras is we need to test them and retest them. So especially if it's a cell cam, test it, make sure that it's sending the pics to your app. If it's an SD camera, practice putting it up, walking in front of it, and just making sure that it's picking you up and so that you understand how far it will pick you up. All that stuff's going to help you next month when we develop a plan and we start to deploy them. Okay. So just really quick to go back over those. Go out, either purchase a trail camera or get your trail cameras out, go over them, make sure that they're clean, make sure that they're working properly, get the SD cards for them, make sure that that's formatted, grab some lithium batteries, put them in there, and then test each camera so you know that it's working well, check the card, make sure that the pictures are there. And then once all that's said and done, just set that aside. With 5 cameras, that shouldn't take you long at all. And that's just a really quick, easy one that we check off and then we move on. Now, getting into the nitty gritty of this podcast, really what we want to focus on, and it's all about shooting your bow. And last year, well, let me back up even further than that. For most of my career, I would pick up my bow 2 weeks before season and I would start shooting it. And just essentially, hey, I can hit a paper plate, I'm good to go. Last month, when we were talking about gear prep, we talked about taking our bows in and getting them tuned. If you haven't done that yet, go do that right away. Go get your bow tuned now. Make sure your strings are good. If you need new strings, get them in there. That way they can stretch out. But what I really want to talk about is a shooting schedule. So in the last couple of years, actually, I bought a Matthews V3 about 2 years ago, and it's the 27-inch one. So really small bow. The problem with small bows is torque. And I started shooting it and I thought, oh my gosh, what did I do? This is a horrible mistake. And I took it into the bow shop and I said, there's something wrong with this bow. And they're like, no, there's something wrong with you. You're not, your form's all off. You're got too much face pressure, all these different things. And so I went in to the internet and I started, finding some good content out there about shooting, and I started to practice every single day. And that's something that I've continued to do. Now, when I say every single day, there might be a couple days that I'm missing throughout there, but relatively speaking, I'm hitting most days in the week. And I'm trying to shoot 3 arrows. I end up shooting 10 usually, but I'm shooting throughout the whole year. In the wintertime, I've got about 9 yards in my basement and I set up and shoot down here. So it made a world of a difference for me. I went out to the woods with a level of confidence that I didn't have before. And I knew that, hey, out to 40 yards, that's a dead deer for sure. Like I can hit that shot. And that was because I practiced every single day to where it just became second nature. And last year on a buck I killed, I was able to focus solely on that buck and not have to worry about everything else because everything was just second nature when I went into my shot process. So I reached out to Rob Yahrmarkt. And Rob, if I just butchered your last name, I'm so sorry. Rob is a professional archer. He shoots for Matthews, and he is just a wealth of knowledge. And so I reached out to him and I said, hey, I'd like to have you come on for about 15 minutes, give us a couple pointers, and then I'll let you go. And we ended up talking for an hour. And if you listen to the intro to this podcast, you know what we're going to talk about. So I'm going to let that conversation start up here. And we'll just start up right off, like in the middle of this conversation, where it gets really good. And we're going to let Rob talk and we're going to cover a lot of different things. But what I want to leave you with is that it's important this month to start shooting. And Rob's going to talk about that, like how much you should shoot and how much you shouldn't shoot. I like to shoot every day. Rob's actually gone, I don't think you need it every day, but you can make up your decision on how often you should be shooting. I think we both agree that you should only be shooting a couple arrows so you don't pick up any kind of bad habits if your form breaks down. But being consistent with your shooting, you should, by October, if you start shooting now, walk in there with a level of confidence that you haven't had in the past. Even if you think you're a great archer, if you're not shooting on a regular basis like this, I really encourage you to do it. It's just going to really, hone in that skill. And that's what the dojo is all about. We're about, development, continuous improvement, and honing our skills. So you can never be good enough. So let's jump into that conversation with Rob, and then I'll touch back at the end. So, how does working like a full-time job and then also, or I assume it's full-time, but how does working and then also having to be a professional archer, like the schedules work out for you?
Yeah, it's difficult. I've got two young kids at home too. So, husband, father, work a sales job, 40, 50 hours a week and then still chase a dream. So,
Yeah.
yeah, but like in the winter, or like I'll start my target season, like let's just say Thanksgiving time. Usually contracts and equipment, all that stuff has arrived or starting to, and contracts are done, and you kind of get an idea what the next season's looking like already. And so around Thanksgiving time, maybe even before that, to be honest with you, I'll start coming up to the club here at 6 a.m. Every morning and start my indoor prep. I got new bows this year from Matthews, so I think I got my first bow in beginning of October. So I had some time, but again, we're hunting too. So I love hunting, and so so started getting everything together target wise. And I've been doing it long enough to where I know where I need to be with draw length and draw weight and arrow setups and stuff like that. So, for indoor, it doesn't take as long to kind of get rolling. But again, I am, only firing my bow a time or two a week, and I'm firing a hunting bow at that point. So, getting back in the shot process. But I really start, in November, already getting into target shape and start getting indoor setup rolling. But I'm up here at up here at 6 a.m., shoot till 7:15, go back home, shower and get help with the kids and get breakfast and kind of get the day rolling, and go off to work. And then, shoot a bit on the weekends, try to shoot some local competitions. I host a lot of competitions, and like selfishly, I host a lot of competitions. So people come to me and I can invite the best people that I possibly can, or try to get the best competition around so I can start preparing myself. So I love giving opportunity to people to get together and shoot and compete. But it started out selfishly that I wanted, to compete against the best that I could and start preparing, for season that way. So yeah, I'll host a couple of shoots and stuff here. So, but like 3D season, it's tough, man. This is my passion out of all the archery that I'll shoot. This is my biggest passion. And, we're in Michigan and we start 3D season at the end of February. So most of the time we've got snow. And so to get outside is difficult and shoot in 30-degree weather, and we got wind. But luckily this year, to be honest with you, I had my targets out at the club here in February. Like we'd get those 45, 50-degree days where it was just warmer than normal. We didn't have any snow on the ground. So, I had targets out and starting to look at them, judge them a little bit, and kind of start just getting acclimated with the 3D setup, earlier than I normally would this year. But yeah, man, just juggling it. Like today, get out of, I'm in sales, so I've got a flexible schedule, which is nice. So I keep my bow in the truck, target in the truck. If I've got time on lunch, I'll swing by a state game area and shoot a little bit. Or, if I've got a flexible enough schedule that, hey, nothing's going on in the afternoon, I'll show up to the club a little early, get some arrows and stuff in and make some tweaks, anything that I need to do. And then I'm home by, 5:30 or so.
Yeah.
So still spend time with the family. So it's difficult, man. It is, I would love to see what I could accomplish doing this, like just full time, flat out, and see how much, improvement I could make and how good I could become, with no other responsibilities outside of being a husband and a father. But, only so many are lucky enough to have that opportunity. So just keep grinding it out and doing the best we can. Plus, I think too, it's, a little bit, if I can go compete at a high level and hopefully win someday while still working a 50-hour a week job, maybe give some hope to other people, that type of thing. But, I also had to juggle a bunch of other stuff, and I was still able to accomplish, so much on the, behind a bow. So yeah, that's the goal and the aspiration.
Dude, I love it so much. And it really says there's no excuse on not chasing your dreams. And it's just about how much, energy you're going to put into it and finding a way to make it happen. Yeah. I was driving the other day and this thought just popped in my head, and it was like, what you want to accomplish with the dojo won't be accomplished at this level of energy you're giving it. Like that, it's like, and I was like, I have to go harder. I have to drive harder. And that's the case for a lot of us, just even as hunters, is I think for some reason people get stuck back and go, I wish I could, do that or what that guy's doing over there. And it sounds kind of like Jocko or something like that, but it is just like, well, go do it, like, yeah. And I think once people can grab that idea that no, you actually can go out and shoot the kind of deer you want to, become the type of hunter, archer, or whatever it is that you're going for. It's just how bad you want it and what are you willing to do to get it, and you're like a living proof of that.
Yeah, I've got a wrestling background. Like I wrestled my entire life. So an individual sport, like, you need good training partners and stuff, but there's so much that you can do in that sport, and with any sport per se, but, specifically, I think wrestling, that you can do so much by yourself. Like there shouldn't be any excuses for being weak, for being, slow, for being, undisciplined. If you want something bad enough, you will figure out a way to do it. I mean, everybody has 24 hours in a day. It's a lot of the cliche things, but they really are true. And true. Like even last night, man, like as soon as my wife and my kids go down to bed, let's just say by 9 o'clock, they're asleep. Then my wife and I maybe catch up for a little while. And, but she's we have a 7-month-old, so she's still up feeding a little bit. Her sleep's broken. And so she's in bed fairly early. So I'm down in my archery room from, let's just say 9:30 until midnight, a lot of nights, and I get up and roll the next morning. You work, you take advantage of what you have and try not to complain too much about what you don't. So, man, it comes back to be cliche, but it really is that simple at the end of the day.
It is. It really is. And that's what, this is a hunting podcast, but the dojo is really more about like this mindset of like a development mindset of achieving your God-given potential, and I really hope one day that what people hear on this podcast rolls over to like other parts of their life. And it's conversations about this. And I talk about mindset a lot on this podcast. And I don't know if people are getting sick of it, because I actually lean more on that than I do on tactics or, other things like that. Like, because I think if you have the right mindset, you'll figure everything else out. Like, so like figuring it out without the mindset, you actually won't accomplish what you're trying to go after, and I could talk to you all day, by the way, on this stuff. And we might have to do that one day when you have a lesser schedule. I don't know if that's ever, but
I find time. We'll put it that way.
And we could talk about that all day. This part, like what I've asked you on here for today, I do something called Do This Now. It's a once a month podcast, and it's meant for individuals who are looking to like improve their game, specifically for someone who might not have found success yet, or got a taste of it and they're looking for more consistency. So the goal here is to keep people's minds in perfecting the craft 12 months a year. And for me, it's daily. It's 365 days. I don't think there's a day that goes by that I don't think about, trying to accomplish my goals in this area. And one thing I incorporated into my regiment last year was I just started shooting every day.
Yeah.
And I am fortunate enough to have, I probably shouldn't be shooting my bow where I am, but I have hunters all around me, so they don't care. And
Nice.
so I shoot in my backyard and I got 30 yards. So
Nice.
I'm able to do that. And then I started shooting in my basement when the weather's really crappy. I've got 10 yards down in my basement, and actually it's like 9 or 9.5. And I just was doing it just for reps and just, getting the right grip in my hand. Today, what I'm hoping we can do a little bit is, and I don't know what I'm going to lean on your expertise, is there like one or two things, maybe three things that people can do to improve their shot process, or their becoming a better archer? Um, or does it have to be more of a complete package where, no, like, no, Matt, you can't just work on three things. You got to work on all of it. Or no, you should only focus on one. Like, I don't know. I'm gonna lean on you to tell me what you think that is.
Yeah, I mean, I've been, since you invited me and stuff, I've been kind of thinking, some talk tracks and everything like that. But, if I could break it down into a couple of things, especially for the time of the year, the very first thing I'm going to tell anybody, get into a bow shop.
Mm-hmm.
You are going to chase your tail 1,000% and make no progress if your bow is not tuned and your equipment is not ready. So whether you are on YouTube hours a day and watching Knock On and Bow Life and some of these popular YouTube channels that take you through doing it yourself and you have the equipment, or you have a good shop with a highly regarded technician that knows their stuff, first and foremost, go now. And I've worked in a shop and I've been in shops that are very, very successful and busy. The worst, and this is no offense, but it needs to be said, the worst customer is the bow hunter who shows up September 1st or 2 weeks before opening day and needs new strings, needs new arrows, needs their bow tuned, and just pulled it out of the case because October 1st is in 2 weeks. That is the worst customer. It will piss off. Excuse my language. I don't know.
No, you're good. No, we just talk normal.
Good. Yeah, it will frustrate. It will piss off a lot of shops, because you had all year. We get 90 days in Michigan to hunt. Maybe a little extra with early doe season and stuff like that. But you had the other 3/4 of the year to get your stuff together. And again, it's going to come back to, okay, let's get the equipment and stuff set up. Okay. Because even if your form is bad, your shot is bad, and you're struggling with some of these things, a bad equipment setup is just going to magnify all of those things. And even if you have great form and you've been working so hard on your shot and your bow's out of tune and your arrow's flying like crap, you're just going to continually go back to yourself or blame the equipment where it's really might be some simple fixes and some time to tune it. So, go get your strings now, strings and cables. If you know you need new strings and cables, go get that stuff now, because there's typically not a long wait. They can get to that stuff in a couple of weeks. Most people don't have a hunt coming up. I leave for Colorado in 10 days. Can you hook me up? Like, go get that stuff done now. And, so by the time they get strings and stuff swapped, if they can help you paper tune it, get everything shooting a bullet hole, get that arrow coming out of that bow straight. Okay. Like, there's check mark. We got a good base to now start getting into, working on our shot, working on accuracy, working on a sight tape, especially if you have a new bow. It's, every year Matthews comes out with a new bow and, you want to go buy a new bow. Well, it takes time to get used to that stuff. So even if you bought it, I hate that they drop them in November. I get it, but I wish they would do it in March, in the spring. Like, that gives people plenty of time to order them and get them, spend all summer with them, get them dialed in and go. So, to get started, go to a shop, get that equipment tuned. If you want to try something new this season, now's the time to do it. If you want to try new arrows, You want to try a new release. Doing it, 2 weeks before season, and putting yourself in a situation where you're hoping to be successful on a large deer, or on a doe, or whatever it might be. You have an opportunity to harvest an animal, and you're hoping to be successful. If you've been doing it for 20, 30 years, your success rate, or your likelihood that you'll be able to do that with new equipment or something, is going to be higher. But take the time to get used to the equipment and test out stuff. So now, also outside of getting it tuned and everything, now's the time to do testing. You want to try a new broadhead, now's the time to be doing it. Say you shot 60 pounds last year and now you want to go up to 70. Well, your arrow setup's slightly going to change. Or say you're a younger archer, you grew 6 inches, since last year, and you need to make some draw length changes and things like that. I mean, bow hunting, there's just so many factors. Archery, there's so many factors that can help either push you towards success or hinder you from success. And if one of those factors changes, they all kind of change. So now is the time. I'm just urging, if you're going to do anything major, new bow, new setups, new broadheads, new anything, or changing anything from last season, now is the time to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I bring my bow in every year, like around March. I mean, maybe even earlier. I don't know. March. This year I did it in April to get tuned. Because I just assume it's not tuned anymore after what I put it through, Yep. And so this year I bring it in, and we both know the guy who works on my bow, and he's like, man, I couldn't figure out what was going on with your bow, because I tuned it last year and it was so like right money. And then so at some point during the hunting season, my rear stabilizer pushed in and was actually hitting the limb when the limb was going up and down. Yep. And I had no clue. And so just little stuff like that. But so he's got it, tuned up, shooting great again. And it's a big difference shooting a tuned bow and not tuned bow. Like, I can tell the difference right away. But if you haven't shot a tuned bow, if you assume that your bow is in tune, or maybe this is the first time that you've even heard that a bow needs to be tuned, because that was me for a lot of years. Yep. Go get it tuned and then shoot your bow, and you will think that you've become a better archer already, just because it's shooting like it should.
Yeah, it's just so much easier to be. Let's just come down to accuracy and accuracy when it comes to hunting. I mean, if you could shoot a paper plate size group at 20, 30 yards, you're going to be able to harvest a deer, for the most part. But the ability to group tune it, and just wad arrows up and stuff, just builds confidence. And a properly tuned bow, so many people don't realize this when they have issues with people who have lost animals in the past, or get poor penetration. They could see it. It's a properly tuned bow typically isn't going to have penetration issues unless you go blow through that shoulder. If you have an arrow that's going straight, it's going to hit whatever it's hitting and keep going. Yeah. If you have something that's coming out of that bow sideways, well, now it's hitting it sideways, and you just lost a lot of penetration. I don't care what broadhead you have on there. And I'm not saying it doesn't kill an animal, but something that just drives right through an animal and keeps going, keeps cutting, and keeps going is going to be way more lethal than something that comes out of that bow cockeyed and flying funny. And you will lose penetration, and people wonder, why did I lose that animal? Why did he go so far, or just anything like that, where you're hindering your success. Having tuned equipment will just increase your odds of being successful in the field. And one of the things that I like to do with my hunting stuff, because I don't really get to do it with my target archery stuff. We shoot a max of like 50 yards, and I'll shoot a tape to 60. With my 3D setup, you're shooting bigger arrows, you're shooting a longer axle bow and stuff like that too. So, I love shooting at distance. I think it is so much fun. to just fire a shot and watch that arrow go at 80 to 100 yards. And I mean, it's so cool to see that, especially if you've got good arrow flight. It's just awesome. But shooting at distance, I found, will make you a much better archer as well. And I've got plenty of buddies that have, commented or argued with me like, oh, I'm not shooting an animal that far. I don't need to practice that far. I get that. But if you truly want to become a better archer, stepping back to those longer distances will magnify setup issues, tuning issues, form issues, anything like that. You had mentioned your bubble being off, when you would, we're at full draw. If your bubble's off to one side and you're at 80 yards, and let's just say at 30, you're hitting dead on, even if your bubble's off at 30, you might only miss an inch, no big deal in the hunting woods. If your bubble's off at 80 yards, you're going to miss probably low left, low right, by 6-8 inches.
Yeah.
And I mean, all that is getting the bubble back to level. Maybe you're torquing the bow. There's so many things that if you can get dialed in at those distances, specifically for the Michigan woods, where we really are taking 20-yard shots, I mean, maybe 40 through the woods. If you're hunting field edges, that's different. But, if you can get confident and shoot good groups at those longer distances, I mean, those are pop shots and come fall time, right? I mean, you're like, your confidence level will be through the roof because, hey, I'm shooting groups like this at 80 yards and all I got to do is hit a paper plate, at 20. So your confidence level and again, to just see how good you can be and how good a setup can be is fun too, man. I had bows, my Matthews Phase 4 last year I was shooting probably 3-inch groups at 100 yards last year. It takes some tuning, it takes some work.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just cool when you're just wadding them up. I've got 2 or 3 arrows touching and one over and stuff like that. And it's just cool to see that kind of accuracy out of yourself and out of your equipment. So I truly believe that getting everything tuned and then working out of your comfort zone as an archer and as a bow hunter, going, shooting longer distances. Plus, so many people are shooting tack events now. Those tack events, you're shooting at the Caribou for a truck at 111 yards. I know there's some of the courses. I've never shot a tack, with my archery schedule, my ASA schedule. So, but I know you're shooting across canyons and uphills and downhills and stuff like that to where your form matters, your tune, all that stuff matters if you want to be accurate and not sending half a dozen arrows into the pines. Of course. So yeah, stretching it out, especially this time of year. We're in t-shirts and shorts. It's comfortable, to do that. It's not 30 degrees on a fall morning, and you're expecting yourself to be that accurate. So yeah, this is the time of year to stretch it out too. And I think that really, really helps, come fall. And just for the future, I think just shooting at those distances, you develop better technique and better form. And if you're not shooting well at those distances, you can maybe tweak a couple things and look to increase, or decrease your group sizing and starting to tighten things up.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on like a daily regimen of shooting? Like, is that good idea, bad idea, indifferent?
I think it's very different for everybody. And I'm going to rely heavily on my target archery experience. Again, I have a bow in my hands, not every day, but most of the time out of a year. Again, it's going to be a target bow and then I'll get into hunting. For me personally, I don't, and I found for my success, I don't like to shoot every day. I feel confident in my skill level and my setups and stuff right now to where things are working and accurate that, I don't, I don't feel the need to shoot every single day, and maybe cause some overthinking and cause some, because if you have a bad day, well, how often are we really honest with each other? I just had a bad day. I'm going to leave the bow in the truck and, we'll come back tomorrow with the same setup and the same everything and try it again. No, you have a bad day and go, wow, maybe I could tweak this.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to adjust this, and maybe you didn't need to. And so I've had the days, especially early in the year, where I'm trying to get ready for season, to where I'm shooting and shooting and shooting, and I'm not getting the scores I want, and I'm tweaking this and tweaking that, and I really just need to maybe take a step back, take a break, clear my head, maybe take a couple of days off, and start over again. So I think it's very individualized.
Yeah.
To where it can be more harmful than good sometimes with some people.
Yeah, it happened with me last year. So I do shoot every day. And I break my rules just about every day. When I say every day, 90% of the time I'm shooting in the month. In some months I'm doing it every single day. But so I would say, okay, 3 arrows, that's it. Because I don't want to keep shooting and then like have my form kind of deteriorate and my muscles get tired, and then tomorrow they're tired. And now I'm compensating differently, and all of a sudden like I picked up bad habits. So it's like 3 arrows just to keep my confidence level up, and so when the time comes, I know that I've done the work. In my mind, that's just how I do it.
Yep.
And I, I rarely ever shoot just three. Like one, if you shoot a good group of three, you want to shoot another good group. And so you start shooting more. And then if you don't shoot a good group of three, you want to fix it. And like, well, maybe the next group. So I'm usually like around 10, and then I can pull myself away and I stop shooting, Matt. But last year, I remember like building up all this confidence, and I was just on fire. And I was like, oh, this is great. Like, I'm going to the season. Right before season, like late August, I'm heading out to Nebraska in September. All of a sudden, something like it just changes, and I'm shooting like crap, and I'm starting to panic and like forcing things to happen. And then my mind starts playing games with me where I'm like, well, I gotta move from my little flapper trigger that I've been doing, and go to like rear tension or whatever, thumb release something. And then I start messing with everything, and I literally had to step like, okay, Matt, you got to walk away. And I had to like set the bow down and walk away for like a week, come back, and I just eventually it just came back, and I was doing okay. It was all in my head.
Yep.
But I do think having, especially for that guy that you described in the beginning, who shows up in September for the October opener or 2 weeks before, growing up, that was kind of the MO. That was what everybody did.
Yep, it was.
And so if that's you right now, and you're looking to get more consistent, kills in the woods, or just, get that first big buck on the wall, I think starting now at some kind of regular tempo, and if that might be for you once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, or maybe, just so you're shooting and get building confidence, because confidence does kill in the woods. And I believe, like, as I got better with my bow, even though, like you said, most of my shots honestly are like 15 to 20 would be stretching it, how I hunt. Like I'm usually in some really thick stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
But building that confidence where I could shoot at 40, just totally, that's one less thing I have to think about, and I just feel, I don't know, like I'm going to be able to get it done when the time comes, and confidence kills. So that's why I think it's important for people to do it in some type of regular, fashion. For me, I'm just kind of an obsessive guy where I shoot every day.
Well, yeah, like that's one thing. We're probably on the same page. I just love shooting my bow.
Yeah.
That's why 3 arrows would never be enough.
Yeah.
I want to go shoot for a while,
Yeah.
But so one thing too, there is no substitute for practice and repetitions.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've shot so many arrows, even through my new titles, my new target bows, that I just know that was a mistake. That was a bad shot on my part. Mm-hmm. Or now I'm like, I shot that arrow good and it did not hit where it was supposed to. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, maybe we need to look at something, just double check the rest, make sure my rest cord is down correctly. There's some stuff, was I putting too much facial pressure? We're really getting into some small specific things, but I've spent so much time shooting that bow that I know if I do my job and the bow's doing its job, it's machine, right? It's going to hit where I need it to. So if you're, again, those guys that show up late to the party and want to have success quickly, and you wonder why you just shot over a doe's back at 15 yards, my sight's set to 20. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, because you haven't spent any time with your equipment or spent enough time even recently to where, yeah, this is my consistent shot. This is, and so I feel like, again, just get back to reps and consistency and spending time with your equipment to the point that, hey, everything should have went there. There's an equipment issue, or, hey, that was a bad shot. I need to redo it, or, shoot some more groups here and really work on a couple of things. So yeah, it's, at that point you've fired so many arrows if you're starting now and shooting even a couple times a week or a couple arrows a week. And then by the time we get to July and August, you maybe ramp it up a little bit, to where you're shooting a couple hundred arrows a month. That's only a few a day, but 20 a day or something like that. But at that point you become one with your equipment and your shot, and you're able to pick out pretty quickly, like, hey, that was a bad shot, I'm just going to let that go, or reset, shoot another one, or there's an equipment issue, or there's a form issue that I really need to address here. So you've got time and reps behind the bow to where you put your due diligence in to try to make yourself successful.
Yeah.
So yeah. Again, I'll sit and shoot if I could, again, till it's dark. And then I'd probably go inside if there's a range and shoot some more. So
yeah,
just love doing it, man. It's so cool to be able to get yourself and your equipment in sync and be able to hit what you're aiming at.
And like we talked about earlier, and just your journey to get to where you're at as a pro archer and juggling all these other things in life, you have to work hard to achieve your goals. There's no, half-assing it. There's no shortcuts to get there. And so if in the deer woods, if you haven't hit that level that you've been wanting to go after, and you just have to look at your energy level and what you're pouring into your craft. And so, and that's why we're doing this now. That's why we're starting to shoot our bows now this early. And so we can we're just pouring more energy into reaching our goal. And so we talked about, get your bow in and get it tuned. And, if there's any new things that you were looking to, add to your bow or change, then, now's the time to do that, or time to get a new bow. We talked about starting some type of regular, shooting regimen, whatever that is for you, and then walking away at times when it's not going well, set down the bow, come back another time and reassess. Can we talk really quick, like, what are like a few things you mentioned? Face pressure, and that's what it generated this question for me. What are a few things that you see maybe new archers or archers who are making mistakes do? Like, I know there's a lot more than just a few things, but what are the few things that really stand out? For me, it was my grip. It was my face pressure, for sure. And then, and it probably still is a little bit, jerking the trigger. Those are the three things that, to be honest, that's all I've ever worked on once I realized that, and my shooting got much better. What do you agree with those, or there's something I'm missing, or?
No, those are all, really important things. Again, there's so many things that can either help or hurt arrow flight, and make a bow accurate. And so, I'll touch on one thing, because I don't want this to have a negative connotation. You said flapper, you're punching a trigger, right?
Yep.
I punch for target archery.
Wow.
Okay, the best shooter in the world right now is probably Kyle Douglas. He's a puncher. Few guys, some of the best guys in the world are punchers. So don't, there's target panic. There's these things, right, that a lot of people face. Don't get discouraged don't think that you're an outlier and you're outcast for being a puncher, right? Especially
Yeah.
nowadays, a surprise shot, execute a good shot. You can punch and still execute a good shot. Again, so don't let that discourage you, or let people tell you that that's a bad thing. If it works for you and you can be consistent and you can execute under pressure, when you have a 160-inch glass deer walk underneath you, or when you're on a line to win some money or something like that, and you can get that arrow to land where you need to, that works for you. So I want to put that out there because I feel like there's this taboo of being a puncher and a command shooter, and it shouldn't be talked about in such a negative, we'll call it a negative light, because I feel that's really all it is.
Man.
And so yeah, but a big thing, again, at these shorter distances, when we're hunting thick swamps and stuff, you can get away with so much, let's be honest, because arrow flight, again, we're trying to hit a paper plate at 20 yards. Arrow flight at that distance isn't really going to be affected by much. So that's why, again, stepping it out those longer distances in practice can really start to expose facial pressure, torquing the bow, bad grip, some of those things. A few things that I very quickly that I feel that people make a lot of mistakes. They will take their hunting arrows. They're going to shoot their regular hunting arrows all year. And then they're going to go throw a lighted knock on that hunting arrow.
Yes.
A couple weeks before season. 9 times out of 10, a normal hunting knock will fit inside your D loop and on your center serving pretty good. Especially if you had somebody that's competent, set up your bow and tune it. And then you go throw that lighted knock on there. Almost every lighted knock I know is bigger and bulkier because of the components and stuff that got to go inside, and your knock fit goes to crap. Knock fit is a huge killer in tune and accuracy. And guys are wondering why they're getting crappy arrow flight and all this stuff. So again, a lot of the companies now are making a practice knock, or, you can turn your knocks into practice mode and stuff like that, so they're not wasting batteries. So practice with what you're shooting with and what you're going to take to the field. I found that so many times. So pay attention to that. So there's that. That's one very easy thing to address and pay attention to is knock fit. If you're making a change come season to a lighted knock, and you wonder why maybe your accuracy or your group's widened up, well, it comes down to that most likely. Facial pressure. I quit wearing a mask. I do face paint and stuff, and even that a lot of times I won't do. So getting consistent anchor points is huge. And this is going to come back to your form and stuff. So if you're having a kisser button or a nose button, looking through a peep sight, having consistent anchor points to where you kind of know, again, comes back to repetitions. If you're putting this feels normal, this feels right. I'm locked in. And so those things can help prevent facial pressure. And because again, the more you do on the back end of an arrow, the worse it's going to be up front. So yeah, being conscious of those things is good. And your grip, it's something that I've fought quite a bit. And actually this year I made it I would say it's a big change. I've been shooting Matthews for a while. I've shot Hoyt. I've shot Prime. There is something about a Matthews grip for me personally that is different than shooting a Hoyt or a Prime bow. The Hoyts, their target bow specifically, most of the time I'm shooting right off the riser, and so it was, the grip was the grip. Well, Matthews, you've got side plates, you've got the regular engaged grip. And so playing around with some of that, I used to jam my hand up into the throat of the riser. Yeah. And because that's the most consistent place to be. I'm in the same exact spot every single time. Well, I found that induced a lot of torque for me, how I would draw and set my grip and everything like that. So I've actually paid attention to Levi Morgan and, a couple of other guys that I shoot with, and a good buddy of mine, Tyler. I was commenting on his grip while we're practicing. I'm like, why is your hand so low? in the grip. And well, that's just where I like it. It's not up in the throat. And so I got to thinking, I'm wondering, well, I wonder what that feels like. So I did it. And it took away a lot of the problems that I was having with my bubble and with my shot and with some torque. And so I've dropped my grip down a little bit. So playing with that stuff, finding what works best for you in your grip, but consistent grip. There's plenty of tutorials on YouTube about proper grip. The biggest thing is consistent grip.
Yeah.
Because then you're going to get consistent results. Even if you're got a bad grip and you're torquing the bow, but if you do it consistently, you can tune to that. You can make that accuracy, make that grip accurate. So, archery and golf are very, very close. I don't care if you have the ugliest swing in the world. Yeah. If you can repeat it and aim properly, the ball's going to go where it needs to. It's the same thing with archery. I don't care if you got a terrible grip and terrible form. If it's consistent, you can tune and sight into the improper, we'll call it improper or default or negative setups or form issues. So yeah, those are some big things. That was probably a lot.
Right. No, it's good. Yeah, no, I know. I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, I've kept you on for a long time, and we could have done like a really long podcast on all of this.
An energizer. I could sit and talk for hours. And I've been, I usually, I've done a couple of podcasts. Yeah, can we do for 30 minutes? And it's 90 now. And
yeah.
I love doing this stuff. I find that there's still so much, I just want to say, bad information. And again, I'm not perfect. I'm not the world class yet, but I feel like I can hang, and I've learned from world class people. I've gotten to know and build relationships with people that are the best in the world. And so I can ask questions and learn from them, to where, I feel confident that if you follow those guys and follow some of the information that's put out there versus, maybe you're just your local bow shop with a guy who just hasn't ever shot target archery or hasn't done anything outside of, let's just call it bow hunting and shooting a bow a couple times a year type of thing. So, I can sit and talk about this for hours. I love doing it. I love just sharing the information. So
I appreciate it. You've really laid down some really good things for people to think of. I went to a nose button last year because it causes pain. And so they're really sharp. Yeah. So, I'm able to know exactly where it's at, and then it helps me take away the face pressure. And so I don't use a kisser anymore. And then, I started shooting lighted nocks, on all my arrows that I was shooting right from the get go. And, it's what, $40 more for 3, like, whatever that price is. We blow so much money on crap that doesn't actually help us in hunting. That's going to help you. Just buy the $40 more and get some extra knocks and shoot with them, And then same thing, I would usually end, like, because I didn't stick to 3 arrows, I would at least shoot 1 or 2 arrows with my broadhead on them at the end. And I made sure that when you have a properly tuned bow, it's pretty amazing. At least for me, my field points were flying the same as my broadheads. And I went from mechanical, I went from fixed, and they were flying, my fixed and my field points were flying exactly the same. And then obviously when I went to mechanicals last year, the mechanicals flew just like my field points. So, but I still did it.
No brainer. Yeah. I'll never shoot a fixed unless I have to. Ever. Yeah. So.
And that's the other thing. I'm glad you said that. There's a lot of information out there where you can get kind of like stuck in the things that actually don't matter as much. And so like that fixed blade, fairy dust type of conversation. I got all into that, and I was all like, this is what's going to matter. And, in the end, I ended up using mechanical, and the mechanical performed flawlessly. Because my bow was tuned and I was shooting, everything was right on. So I had no problems whatsoever. And I wasted all that time. And actually I stress out about this stuff. I think stressing out out about things help me like become better in a weird
Yep.
way.
Yep.
But sometimes it's a lot of wasted time and energy too, though. So don't get caught up with all the stuff out there. I mean, just kind of keep it basic,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I 1,000% agree. Again, when it comes to fixed versus mechanical, again, a fixed blade, if you torque your bow and do anything,
yeah,
you're going to have accuracy issues. They will magnify the inaccuracies. Mechanical, you torque your bow, you might have some accuracy issues if you're not doing things right, but it's not going to be as magnified. Your accuracy shouldn't suffer as bad. Your aeroflight shouldn't suffer as bad. So there's that stuff. So I mean, the last thing that it just kind of clicked to me that I'll kind of summarize everything,
hmm
and I'll share a short story to how this applied. Again, I've been shooting target archery for 7 years now. So, I spend a lot of time behind the bow, just in muscle memory, and you're just going and shooting and putting myself into pressure situations with target archery to where, again, I'm shooting for money and shooting for pride and all of that stuff to where there's pressure. My heart is
yeah,
beating just like it would be on a good buck. The moment of truth is coming. Those reps in the target archery has made hunting for me way easier.
yeah,
And again, that never became so apparent in Missouri 3 years ago now. I'm hunting public land, went there on a whim, did no prior scouting other than e-scouting, and hadn't seen a buck, seen some deer and stuff. Hadn't seen a buck in 3 days. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm having a pity party, texting my wife. I see a deer moving through the swamp. Look around the tree, massive rack. And I pick up my bow. I'm shooting a hinge to hunt with too.
yeah.
So I can't punch and I've had some issues hunting. So again, I shoot a hinge to hunt with a lot of times. But all the practice that I had done with a hinge and the shot, execution and everything like that, I was on autopilot. All I did was wait for that buck. I drew. When that buck was at 30 yards, he walked right at me, came to 10 yards, quartered a little bit to me or away from me, and I put one through his heart at 10 yards.
That's
And
awesome.
biggest buck of my life, he ran 20 and tipped over. But I went from no deer, no nothing to at full draw on the biggest buck of my life, executing a shot, and it was over.
Yeah,
And again, I didn't have to panic. I didn't flinch. I literally drew my bow, got anchored, settled my pin, and just kept working the shot, fired, and dead deer.
yep,
And so all of the reps and all of the work that you put in now should get you into autopilot. I'm not saying your heart rate's not going to be elevated and there's going to be some pressure, but all the work and the reps and stuff that you do now will help you kind of get into autopilot and cruise control, and all that muscle memory and everything should just take over. And you should be able to be successful at that point, all
yeah,
things considered, because of all the work that you did leading up to that. So yeah, the target archery and all the shooting that I do all spring and summer makes the moment of truth just that much easier.
yeah, yep, yeah. I can't agree with you more, and I think that's what this is all about. The Do This Now series is like you're doing all this work now, so when the time comes, you're ready, and you have the best opportunity, to get it done. So I can't agree with you more. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah. It's just like anything else. The work you put in now will help you, for the day that it matters or when the time comes. So yeah, you just keep working and keep trying to figure it out. And especially been doing it for years and years and years. It gets easier and hopefully you become more successful. So
Yeah. So where, if people want to kind of, follow you and see what you're doing, where can they do that at?
yeah, so my Instagram is just my first initial and my last name. So it's RYAHRMARKT. I'm on Instagram probably more than anything. I love
Same.
having that community and stuff. I find it honestly supportive, really super
hmm
supportive. I got people that I've never met in person, sending me DMs or congratulating me on a good weekend and just following along, man. I that's the one thing I do love about social media.
Yeah.
And having that stuff out there. So again, I'm trying to post and share as much as I can on Instagram, but I'm on Facebook too. So just my first and last name on Facebook. And that's really about it. Again, I spend most of my time probably on Instagram trying to share any stories or information or equipment, anything I'm finding between hunting and fishing and target archery.
Yeah. Awesome, man. I can't thank you enough. And like I said, I know we could go into so much around this topic, but getting everybody thinking that, let's start working on this stuff now. And like you said, there's a lot of material out there. You can YouTube it. I'll probably talk or at least have a list of some reputable places that people can go and look at stuff so they can work on their farm or whatever else they want to do. And then, I again, I can't thank you enough for making time to do this. Extremely busy man. And I think it's going to be beneficial for everybody, man.
Well, I appreciate having me on. Like I said, I can talk for hours about this stuff. I love doing it. It's such a passion of mine. So yeah, anytime I get a chance to share information and talk about it and get it out there, I'm certainly willing to do so.
Well, do me a favor, like at some point in your season where it ever like starts to have a little decline, if you want to have like a deeper conversation about archery, I'll throw the invite out now. I'd love to have you on. And I'm starting to move to like a more of like a hour and a half, well, hour and a half for sure, hour and a half, 2 hour conversation around things, because I find myself not having enough time to get into really what you want to. So that invite is always out for you. And again, thanks for coming out to the dojo and just providing some of your knowledge, man. It was really good.
Yeah, appreciate it. I just got my lift a couple weeks ago, so it's sitting on the shelf right now. Target season's in full swing, so I'm gonna be getting some arrows built when I got some time and start getting the bow hunting set up and stuff. Kind of dialed in here later this summer. But yeah, man, a couple months once we start getting closer to things and winding down, I'd love to hop on and talk to you about all that setup stuff that I like to go through and just start getting ramped up for fall.
Awesome, man. Thanks a lot. So there you have it. Thank you, Rob, for coming out and having that conversation with us. And thanks for staying on a lot longer past 15 minutes. It was a great conversation. But so I wanted to leave you guys with a resource on, learning how to shoot better. And like I said, even if you're a good archer or even a great archer, continuous improvement, we can always get better. Knock On Archery on YouTube is probably, I think, one of the best resources for shooting tips and techniques and all of that stuff. You can spend hours and days there and really perfect your craft. It's a great resource, and I really encourage you to go there if you're having some shooting problems. And again, just to highlight, I've said it a few times, Reb said it, but making sure you have a tuned bow and, shooting with the equipment that you're going to be shooting in the fall is very important. And so I do that as well. Like, I reference shooting lighted nocks and also take a couple shots with a broadhead each time I go out, and just helps me know that my arrows are flying true and just getting used to pulling back that broadhead and letting it fly. So that is it for the Do It Now series for May. We're going to be back next week with another whitetail master. And until then, embrace the journey. Well, that is a wrap here on the Mobile Hunters Dojo. We're going to drop a new podcast every Thursday at 5 a.m. Do us a favor, go give us a follow over at Instagram at the Mobile Hunters Dojo. Also, if you could leave us a 5-star review at Spotify or Apple Podcasts, it helps us out a lot. Thanks a lot. We look forward to seeing you again back here at the Mobile Hunters Dojo.